So employer's liability for compensation. So we discussed 4 essential elements need to be satisfied to claim the compensation from the employers, or under 4 circumstances employer is liable to pay the compensation. 4 things need to be, essential elements need to be satisfied. So what are they? 1, there must be personal
Injury.
personal injury. What do you mean by personal injury? It also includes bodily injury and
Mental
even
injury.
mental shock or nervous shock. So everything covered under the personal injury. There must be personal injury. Second, this injury must be because of some accident. It is not planned one. Some unexpected
accident or
event,
disease.
untoward event, accident or the occupational disease. Occupational disease. I mean, they should prove that this disease is because of the occupation. There is a close connection, proximity between the employment and the disease. That's it. Employment and the disease. That they need to prove. Unless and until they prove there is a proximity between an employment and a disease, so they cannot claim for a compensation. Because in one case, the Jyoti Ademma versus plant engineer Nellore. Jyoti, I think case laws which gives some clarity. Jyoti Ademma versus plant engineer Nellore. Nellore happened in 2006. 2006. So Labor Law Journal 324. Labor Law Journal 324. Supreme Court. Okay. So Jyoti Ademma versus plant engineer. Because I said there is a proximity or there is a causal connection between the employment and a disease. In this case, the diseased employee was suffering from heart disease. Of course, Jyoti Ademma, she was suffering from heart disease. The job of the deceased just only to switch on and off in a thermal station where he was employed. Where he was employed. That's it. What was his job? His job just to switch on and switch off in a thermal station. That's it. Now question comes whether employer is liable to pay the compensation or not. The Jyoti Ademma was died because of the heart attack, and he already had the heart disease. This is what from the case we can hear, heart disease. Heart disease. He already had a heart disease. But the duty of the Jyoti Ademma just to switch on and switch off the thermal in a thermal station, thermal power. Now the question comes, so the death of this person, whether it is due to the employment or not. Due to the employment or not. Employment or not. Supreme Court observed that there was no scope for stress and strain in his duties. This is very important, the observation of the court. When there is a claim for the compensation on the basis of an occupational disease, court always look for whether this particular disease is caused by the employment or not, whether your nature of the work which lead to the stress or the disease. So that is the important. The Supreme Court observed in this case, by looking at the nature of the work or a job, there is no scope for any stress or strain in a duty performed by the Jyoti Ademma. And the question comes whether the death, whether due to the accident arising out of or in the course of his employment or not. That will be the question. Supreme Court held that his death due to heart attack was therefore rightly held as not caused by accident arising out of and in the course of its employment. Look at Supreme Court held that the heart attack, when the employment is not at all the reason for such heart attack. So that's what just by looking at an incident or a death, we cannot say that whether employer is liable or not. This is what I discussed. So these four essential elements need to be satisfied. These four essential elements need to be satisfied. What is the third essential element? That's what we discussed in the last class. What was that? Very important essential element for the compensation. What is that?
Due to the course of employment, right?
Arising out of and in the course of his employment.
Right. Arising out of. What it indicates? Arising out of? Arising out of?
Course of his or her employment.
Course of employment.
The cause. This cause is the reason or the cause. Arising out of. And during the course of employment. What does it indicate? During the course of employment means? It says that the
place and
time. Place and time. Place and time. See, the employment must be the reason for such injury, and this should happen during the course of an employment. The place and time is also an important. It's very, very important. Place and time is also important. Because the question comes, I mean, there is no confusion if anything happen in a workplace. Now question comes, what happens in case suppose during the lunch break, if any industrial accident took place, whether employer is liable or not? Or suppose employee while traveling to and traveling from an employment, whether employer is liable to pay the compensation or not. So those are all question comes before the court of law. So this arising out of an interpretation to the term arising out of and during the course of an employment is very, very important. So when you decide the traveling to and traveling from, the Code on Social Security 2020 very clearly established this traveling to or traveling, I mean, describe this traveling to and traveling from. Usually, when you think from a different angle, the traveling to and traveling from the workplace should be excluded. When you look at from a very a naked eye, I mean, we must exclude. But however, court interpretations says that suppose in case if there is any proximity between traveling to and traveling from within employment, now traveling to traveling from also must be included. Very interestingly, the Code on Social Security 2020 included this particular term. We will come across later. Traveling to, traveling from must be included in case if there is any close connections or proximity or causal connections between the employment and traveling to and traveling from. Very interesting. So the third essential element I said that the arising out of and during the course of employment. What is the fourth essential element? It must be resulted in either partial or total disablement exceeding either death or disablement exceeding
of 3 days. Exceeding 3 days.
3 days. Exceeding 3 days. What does it mean? Suppose any injury or disablement does not exceed 3 days, whether he is eligible to claim for a compensation?
No.
No. So what does it indicate? It indicates either this accident must result in a death. Who can claim for a compensation during the time of the death? The dependents that we discussed. Dependents can claim for a compensation, or the disablement should exceed the 3 days in order to claim for the compensation. In case if it does not exceed 3 days, one cannot claim any compensation from the employer. Employer can escape from the liability. So we'll discuss now under what occasions employer can escape from the liability or not escaping. Under what occasions the employer can take a plea, the defense before the court of law that they are not the liable. So those are all occasions or circumstances we'll discuss now. Hope you understood some of the essential elements. It's very, very important. So things need to be satisfied to claim for the compensation under the Code on Social Security 2020. And earlier, this particular legislation was known as Employee Compensation Act 1923. Now we'll discuss one by one. This is what we discussed. Provided that the employer shall not be so liable. Yes. Anyone want to read? Please make it fast.
In respect of such injury which does not result in total or partial disablement of the employee for a period of exceeding.
This is what I discussed just now. If any injury which does not result in total or partial disablement, this is what I said. I hope you understood the meaning of a total disablement and a partial disablement. In a total disablement, in fact, like a permanent total disablement, which incapacitates a person from earning. Incapacitates. But in case of the partial disablement, permanent partial disablement, which reduces the earning capacity of an employer. This is what we discuss. Partial disablement, which includes in a part second of the Schedule 4 that we discussed in a last class. What is permanent partial disablement? What is permanent total disablement that we discussed. But whatever, whether it is a total or partial disablement, in case if it does not exceed 3 days, now the employer is not liable to pay any compensation for the same. What does it indicate? It indicates that employer is liable to pay the compensation only in case where the total, where there is or the injury which resulted in total or partial disablement exceeding 3 days. If this is the case only, the employee can claim for a compensation or employer is liable to pay the compensation. That's it. I hope it is very simple to understand. So even layman also can understand so these provisions. So we'll discuss like the next the provision. Yes.
In respect of such injury not resulting in death or permanent total disablement caused by an accident which is directly attributable to.
See here, the two things need to taken into consideration, that is death or permanent total disablement. I mean, employer can take a defense or he can plead before the court of law. He can take certain defense that you can see later. He can take some defense before the court of law that we are not liable because of there is even mistake on the part of the employees. That's what he can escape from the liability, but he cannot escape from the liability when there is a case of death and the total disablement. Please remember, when it is a case of death and permanent total disablement, the obligation is an absolute on the part of an employer. On the other hand, there is an absolute right on the part of an employer to claim for a compensation during the time of the permanent total disablement. See, in both the case, the death and permanent total disablement, it is the dependents can claim for a compensation. The dependents can claim for a compensation. So, no defense can be taken by the employer when there is a case of death and permanent total disablement. In case if they able to prove that, four essential elements what we discussed just now. In case if they able to prove these four essential elements, the personal injury, accident, or occupational disease arising out of or during the course of an employment or the other condition, prima facie they are eligible to claim for a compensation. That's it. Other than the death or permanent total disablement, in other occasions, what are the other occasions here? Permanent partial disablement, temporary disablement, even temporary disablement also can be classified, temporary partial and temporary total, that can be classified. So whatever, when there is a permanent partial disablement or injury resulted in a temporary disablement, is because of the following reason, employer can escape from the liability. What are the reasons? The first one. This is the first reason. What is that?
The employee having been at the time of thereof under the influence of drugs or drink or drugs.
Exactly. See here. If any disablement causes because of in case employer he could plead before the court of law that or in case if able to prove before the court of law that during the time of an accident the employee was under the influence of the drink or drugs. When he was under the influence of intoxication, now whether employer is liable to pay the compensation? Employer is not liable to pay the compensation, but it should not resulted in a death or permanent total disablement. Please keep it in mind. Say, even if an employee, in case if he was under influence of the drink or drug, injury cost resulted in a death, now employer is liable to pay the compensation. When employer is not liable to pay the compensation, when this particular incident resulted in permanent partial disablement or the temporary. If this is the case, if this injury resulted in this, employer may plead that no, we are not liable because he was under the influence of drinks and drugs. That's it. Questions?
So you said he is liable to pay when there is a debt or permanent, but not liable when there is partial. correct?
Exactly. Because
Okay.
see, these are all defense what employer can take. But such defense cannot be taken during the time of death or permanent total disablement. No defense can be taken because these are all circumstances in which dependents is eligible to claim for a compensation. Dependents. No defense can be taken during the time of the death and total disablement. Such defense can be taken. I mean, employer is not liable only in case of permanent partial disablement and the temporary disablement. Employer may say that he was under the influence of drink or drug. That's it. Clear? What about others? Global students, understood?
Yes, sir.
Nishat Ahmed, everything is clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, next. Nishat, can you read?
The willful disobedience of the employee to an order expressly given or to a rule expressly framed for the purpose of securing the safety of employees or
See here. Willful disobedience. Willful disobedience of the employee to an order. See, please note it down. Willful disobedience of an employee, willful disobedience. See, very interestingly, we can interpret this word. It is not only a disobedience. In case employer pleads that there is an disobedience on the part of the employee, it is not enough to escape from the liability. Employer should plead that there was a willful disobedience. Willful disobedience on the part of employee. See, I mean, there is a, I mean, it is whatever the disobedience, it is a willful, intentional. He knew that what exactly the consequent and willfully he disobeyed, not followed the instructions. Willful disobedience on the part of the employee. I mean, disobedience is not sufficient, but such disobedience must be willful. Willful. Not only that, I mean, willful disobedience must be segregated from the negligence. Please keep it in mind. You cannot say that before the court he was negligent. No, such defense cannot, not at all can be entertained. Negligence must be segregated from the willful disobedience. Negligence is not important for us. The important, the employer can take a defense that, there was a willful disobedience. That's it. Willful disobedience. So that's what the willful disobedience of the employee to an order, see, expressly given, important. Once again, express order is important. Tomorrow, in case if you run a factory or you are working for some organization, so please make sure that what kind of instructions you give it to the employees. It's important. Because my personal suggestions, whatever the instructions given to the employee, please put it on record. How you want to put it on record? In case expressly in the sense, please, whatever the instructions, put it in a notice board. Or now we know that the electronically you can send instructions to the employees. So that is also one of the way. And one more, so express, I mean, the order must be expressly given. In case if you expressly, you must give a order to the employees. What is order? The instructions or safety measures. Instructions. Important. The instructions to the employees is also important. But what type of the instructions you give, so that is also important because the language is also important sometimes. The language is also important sometimes, because in a case like Arya Muni, the case the Arya Muni versus Union of India. Union of India. Union of India. An employee met with an accident while working in the factory in a year somewhere 1954. Because of this accident, an employee lost his right eye due to an injury caused by a spark rushing into his eye. Now, in fact, a notice in English directing all the workers to use goggles while at work was put up on the notice board. Where there is a clear instructions in but language is important, as I said. In English language, there was a notice and a very clear instructions that so while doing like this type of like welding work, so the goggle must be wear. Therefore, it was contended that the employee himself was negligent. And one more defense what employer was taken here, neither he ever asked for goggles and nor it was supplied by the supervisor. That's it. Supervisor, unless and until he asked for the same, so he had not supplied. That's it. Because there was a clear instructions. It is the duty of the worker to take. We know that somewhere, some of the places I have seen while doing a welding work, there are some people is so negligent that even if there is sometimes there may not be an instruction from the employer. Sometimes even if there is an instructions, the employee, they don't want to wear a goggle. That's it. The supervisor admitted that the goggle were in stock, but it was not asked by the employee. That's it. And it was also contended that very interestingly, the employee understood what was in a notice. What was in a notice? See, now like whether employee is liable or not, whether he willfully disobedient or not. Court held not to be willfully disobedient for the following reasons. Court held that not to be willfully, he was not willfully disobedient, because there is nothing to indicate that there is he had a sufficient knowledge of an English which could enable him to understand the content of the notice. Important. See, this is what the defense, what the employee will take always. So he may plead before the court of law that so I even if I can understand like the basics of an English, so he may plead before the court of law that I could not understand what exactly like a basic premise of that notice. So he may not understand. So that's what the court held that there is no case of willful disorder. This is what I said. The order must be expressly given, or to a rule expressly framed. See, this is what very, very important. I said in a Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act. So these are all things need to be very clearly specified. Specified each and everything, because there will not be any confusion. And one more thing, while we know that I hope you remember the content of the standing order, while framing rules or service agreement, now the question comes, in one of the case, same thing happened. Now we know that the standing order is nothing but a contract between an employer and employee. Now, suppose if you insert one provision inside the standing order by stating that during the time of an accident, the employee is not eligible to claim for any compensation. I hope you understood. While framing a standing order, you inserted one provision that during the time of any industrial accident, so employee is not eligible to claim for any compensation. Now, question comes whether such provisions in a standing order, whatever you inserted, whether it is valid or not. Whether can you insert such provisions? Is it valid in case if you insert this type of provision? After having like a background of a standing order, I think like you should be in a position to answer this question. Is it a valid in case if you insert such provision in a standing order? The provision is simple. You inserted one provision by stating that in case in future, in case if there is any industrial accident, the employer is not liable to pay any compensation. Is it right? Is it right in case if you insert such provision?
No, sir.
So
No, sir.
such provision as against the provisions of these employee compensation is completely null and void. It is completely null and void. What do you mean by null and void? It is very void from the very beginning. Such provision itself is not at all a valid. So that's what you cannot insert any provisions in a standing order as against the provisions of this act, the compensation. Okay. We'll discuss the next the provision. Read it.
The willful removal or disregard by the employee of any safety guard or other device which he knew to have been provided for the purpose of securing the safety of employee.
Exactly. See, sometimes the safety measures, we know that I think like in a factories act, sir might have discussed what all like safety measures need to be provided by the employer. Because we know that suppose I think like in a section 21 of like a factories act of 1948 says that I think like in a code it may be different clause. It says that machines must be fenced clearly, and the pits and sumps must be clearly covered or fenced, and near to the dangerous machines the young person should not be allowed to go, and women should not be allowed to go near like a cotton openers. So these are all like safety measures provided in a factories act. So in spite of this safety measures, so safety, I mean, Factories Act says that each and every machines or dangerous part of the machines should be clearly fenced. Sometimes some people, what they'll do, they'll purposefully, they'll remove the safety measures and they'll go near like dangerous machines, and it may lead to an injury. That's what willful removal. Purposefully, sometimes he may remove the safety measures provided by the safety guard provided by the employer. So sometimes he may completely willfully disregard the safety measures provided by the employer. I mean, so dangerous machines, or sometimes like some of the bar which extends beyond the machinery in a manufacturing setup, you might have seen. So sometimes even these machines need to be greased, or sometimes like these machines should be maintained or get it repaired. So I think like you understood in a very clear way in a Factories Act who must go near to the machine, such machines. Whether young person, I hope you understood adult there in a Factories Act very clearly defined adult and adolescents, young persons, or so those classifications, and why women employees should not be allowed to go near to the machines, and what exactly the timings of the women workers in order to, I mean, to work in a factory setup. So those are all very clearly established in a Factories Act of 1948. So for the purpose of our understanding here, in case purposefully or willfully, in case any employee removed, so now So he is not eligible to claim for the compensation during the time of permanent partial disablement or temporary disablement. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
This is important. This is what I said. The Code on Social Security, which inserted some of the important the interpretation given by the court. So we can see like this provision. So anybody want to read this? Any from Krupamol? Anthony? Make it fast because I don't have much time. Krupamol, Anthony, are you there? Or Sadaf Khatija, can you read this? Sadaf?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
An accident occurring to an employee while commuting from his residence to the place of employment for duty or from the place of employment to his residence after performing duty shall be deemed to have risen out of and in the course of employment if nexus between the circumstances, time and place in which the accident occurred and his employment is established.
See, this is important. I think like I told this, an accident occurring to an employee while commuting from his residence to place of employment for, this is what I said, the to and from, I said, very in a simple, put it in a simple word, the from and to the workplace and from the workplace, to residence, whether it must be included or not. It depends upon the circumstance, time, place, and there is a close nexus between an accident and the employment. What type of access or transport access are provided by the employer? So that is also matters. Whether transport provided by the employer or not. Suppose transport provided by the employer. So suppose so an employee, say for example X, a bus is provided by the employer. Bus. Now, employer compels the X to travel only in a bus provided by the employer. Now, in case any accident happened, the bus met with an accident. Now, employer is liable to pay the compensation. It should be deemed to be in the course of or arising out of employment. Or else, sometimes there is an option available to the X. Either you travel in a bus, or in case if you want to, you can go by the private vehicle or private bus. Now, if any accident took place to this private bus or his private vehicle, whether employer is liable, employer is not liable. On the other hand, one more scenario we can take. Say same example we'll take X, and he is working for some mine, and it is inside the forest, and there is no other the transport mode other than like employer transport. But employer does not compel the X to travel only in the transport provided by the employer. This is the case. Since there is no other mode, that is the only mode, now employer is liable to pay the compensation. So it should be deemed as the arising out of and in the course of an employment. So those are all things need to be taken into consideration. So this is what with respect to the compensation, when he is liable, when he is not liable. I hope you understood. So what circumstance employer is liable, what circumstance employer is not liable to pay the compensation. Clear?
So what if it's a private vehicle allotted by the company for that certain day and the employees are traveling in that, and if that has an accident?
Yeah, it depends on, I mean, this is what the question of fact. Case to case basis we need to discuss. What are the circumstances? Whether a private vehicle provided, that is the only option, whether the employer compels the employee to travel that mode provided by the employer. So those are the question comes.
If it
Question
is,
comes.
if
It
it
depends
is,
upon the circumstance, time, place, accident, employment.
sir, I understood. You said it's either private or public. That part I understood. But
Mm.
what if, say, I'm giving a real life circumstance, sir, this is. So what if there were employees, the company allotted a private vehicle
Mm.
for that certain travel to reach back to their home or to the factory, anyone.
Mm.
And there were employees in the car, and the company allotted that private vehicle to pick them up and drop them to that certain
Correct.
place. And if that faces an accident, then what will the this be, sir?
No, that's what. See, I mean, it depends on the circumstances. As I said, whether it is a private car or private bus, it is not important. Important here, I mean, there must be clear nexus between these aspects, like the environment and circumstance. That's it. Circumstance. That's what, like, if anything happens, as you said, in a private vehicle, and which is provided by the employer is liable. But sometimes employer, see, if anything happens, see, if everything is fine and nobody will question. If so tomorrow, if anything goes wrong, now like the things will come up and certain things will bounce up. And the employer will say that no, we didn't compel an employee to travel in my car, and I told him like it is an option to the employee to travel either by car or by his own private vehicle. So that's what I said. It depends upon the circumstance, time, place, accident, and employment. Employment.
Okay, sir.
Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So now, like, we'll discuss. I'll may go a little bit the faster the amount of compensation. Can you make it fast? Make it fast.
Where death results from an injury, an amount equal to 50% of the monthly wages of the deceased employee multiplied by the relevant factor or an amount as may be notified by the central government from time to time, whichever is more.
So how to calculate the compensation during the time of the death? 50%. 50% of the wages. 50% of the wages. Say he's earning like the 8,000 rupees per month. So now what we need to calculate? The 4,000 multiplied by the relevant factor. Multiplied by the relevant factor. Relevant factor you can look at in a sixth schedule. Just love for your understanding, it depends upon the age of an employee. One second. One second. I'll show like how to calculate that, and after that we'll move at the relevant factor. This is what code on Social Security. We'll look at the schedules. Schedules. This is the fifth schedule, and look at the sixth schedule. See, sixth schedule. Can you see this PDF file? Sixth schedule.
Yes, sir.
See, relevant factor here. Until the age of 16, the relevant factor remains the same, 228.54. Until the age of 16. Suppose in case if he is at the age of 14 or 15, so relevant factor remains the same. After that, it depends upon the age. It keep reducing. See, relevant factor keep reducing. And once if a person attains the age of 65, it remains 99.37. After like 65 years, this particular factor remains same, 99.37. What you need to see? You need to see that. See, now if a person during the time of an accident, you need to look at his age. Let an employee has age of like 35. Yes. We need to see what exactly the relevant factor. 197.06. Keep it in mind. This is the relevant factor. 197.06 is a relevant factor. Now what we need to do? For 4,000 multiplied with, what is the number?
197.06.
197.06. So this is what the total amount of compensation is entitled to get when during the time of death. During the time of death. Or else, or an amount as may be notified by the central government from time to time, whichever is more. Because in earlier legislation, we could find either this 50% of wages into relevant factor or 1,20,000, whichever is more. That was this one. And in a code of social security, they removed this. Just a provision we can find, it must be notified by the central government. So now for your understanding, so 50% of the monthly wages, average monthly wages multiplied with the relevant factor. I hope you understood how to look at the relevant factor in a schedule 6th of the code. Clear? We look at now like the partial total disablement. Total disablement. Can you read?
Where permanent disablement results from the injury, an amount equal to 60% of the monthly wages of the injured employee multiplied by the relevant factor, or the amount as notified by the central government from time to time, whichever is more.
Exactly. During the time of the death, 50%, but during the time of the total disablement, it is a 60%. Permanent total disablement is a 60%. 60% into 60% of the wages multiplied with the relevant factor. So this is the total disablement. Okay, that's the schedule. Read it fast.
In case of an injury specified in Part 2 of 4th Schedule, such percentage of compensation which would have been payable in the case of permanent total disablement, as is specified therein, as being the percentage of loss earning capacity caused by the injury.
So this is what this is a case of the permanent partial disablement, where you should look at first of all you should calculate the compensation for the total disablement. Just now we said that it's a 60% of multiplied with the relevant factor, and accordingly what you need to see that from this the total compensation amount, we know that what exactly like reduction in earning capacity, percentage of loss of earning, so that we need to calculate. Suppose like this comes to like the 3 lakh rupee. From this, like what is the reduction earning capacity? Say we know that reduction earning capacity is in a PPD, permanent the partial disablement is 70%. 70% of this we need to take. 70% of this we need to calculate. This is a part second of the 4th schedule, in the sense the permanent partial disablement. So in case if you have any doubt, in the next class I'll clarify this. I'll move ahead for time being. In a temporary disablement result from the injury, sum equivalent to 25% of the monthly wages of the employee directly. 25%. In case we know that these are all like temporary disablement also, which is listed under the Act. 25% of the monthly wages of an employee. So this is with regard to the amount of compensation to be paid during the time of an industrial accident. So there are some more things to discuss. I think like in a next session we'll discuss about those like remaining the aspects.